Take it easy and solve the school lunch problem with SPAM. S-P-A-M.
こんにちは、タイガークローラジオ。You are listening now. Back J.
You are listening to Tiger Claw Radio. Number 1 in vintage computer and video game entertainment. And now your host, Critical Failure.
You're listening to Tiger Claw Radio. It's that time again. We're going to talk about some video games. We're going to hear some tunes. We're going to have a good old time. Chiptunes Equals Win number 7 did in fact come out this past week. It was originally slated for Friday, ended up coming out Tuesday, but either way, we've got it now. We're going to listen to some tunes on it. We're going to have a good time. We're going to talk about some Twisted Metal, which is a big game for me this past week, and some more things. All right, let's dig right into it. This first track is from Antler. It's called Sexy Robot Pool Party, right here on Tiger Claw Radio. So I have been talking about it, and I finally made it happen. I sat down with, I first got out Twisted Metal 2, and I played a little Twisted Metal 2. Didn't watch a video about it, didn't read about it. I put the game in and I played it. It's a little bit hard to control. Well, it's a lot of bit hard to control, actually. But man, it's still fun. It's still fun. It's tough. It's tough to drive down little thin hallways because the cars just start bouncing off the walls. So yeah, it's really hard to control, but I really enjoyed it, man. I really did. I played a little bit of Vigilante 8 because if you've been watching the channel, then you know I got that new. That is also awesome. It's a little bit more cleaned up than Twisted Metal 2 is because it came out a little bit later. But what I didn't know was that Vigilante 8 got a version on the Xbox 360. Wow. I haven't fired up my Xbox 360 in quite a while, but I saw some footage of that on YouTube, and that might be worth dusting that machine off for. I'll have to get my brother on the phone. If that supports any sort of split screen, I might go as far as to buy a second Xbox 360 controller and then get my older brother over for some couch multiplayer action of an HD version of Vigilante 8. Because, man, those days from back in the day were really awesome. So here's the deal. Here's another thing that I found that makes this worth talking about now. In the old days, my older brother had Twisted Metal 2. It was his game. And then shortly after he got that, I got Twisted Metal 1. And I got it on Christmas. It was like early in the greatest hits run of things. To be honest, I can't remember if it was a greatest hits game or not, but I can tell you that the one that I got was a jewel case. I didn't get the big case, like the big long box release. I got like plain old PS1 version of the original Twisted Metal. And I played through it with most of the characters to see the text scrolling endings. And what I didn't know until today is that they actually filmed Hollyweird era live action FMV endings for all the characters. They got cut from the final game, so they're not in the game. But if you go on YouTube, you can watch them, and they are glorious. They are absolutely glorious. In the old days, my favorite original PlayStation game was the original Resident Evil. Okay? You guys know, do you remember what the introduction to Resident Evil, the first one, was like? That's what this is like. Also a long box game. I wish they were still in there because the impression they would have left if I had seen them at that ripe young age playing through the original Twisted Metal as a teenager. I dearly wish they were still in there because they're well done. I mean, they're cheesy. They're beyond cheesy, but in the good way. Do you know what I mean? In the fun way. So if you like those old Twisted Metal games, I would recommend getting on the YouTubans and looking up the endings, the ending videos for the original Twisted Metal. It took me a minute. When I first found them. It was Outlaw was who I played as okay, I'm jumping all around here. I saw the Outlaw ending, right? Outlaw's ending from the original Twisted Metal, and it was the full video, and I could see Calypso, and Calypso had all the makeup. Now, if you remember, what it would actually show is a still shot of Calypso with this weird makeup on, and then it would have rolling text. Well, that still shot was like a studio makeup test photo of Calypso from the full motion videos. So to see him come alive and start talking, it was kind of shocking. And I thought perhaps, like, was there like an older version that had these intact? Where did this come from? But no, it turns out they were cut from the game. It was an exciting moment. Not a very long-lived moment, but an exciting moment in classic retro gaming discovery for me. I did also try setting up an emulator. I got EPSXE working on my computer, working in big air quotes. Like I mentioned in my Vigilante 8 video, I was thinking, well, we'll get the emulator going. We'll play some PS1 games. I can play them right off the CD-ROM, right? And they should work just fine. Even though it's an emulator, I mean, I'll be playing an authentic copy of the game, so I won't have to worry about breaking any rules. But the quality, just I don't know. I don't know. There's there's a lot of variables. Like EPSXE has a lot of different options, so I wonder if I haven't set it up properly. But neither one of those two games, Twisted Metal 2 or Vigilante 8, played in an acceptable fashion. Twisted Metal 2 would play, but the menus looked terrible, and the certain cut screens wouldn't load, which made me worry that if I took the time to play all the way through the game, I wouldn't get to watch the ending, and that would make me upset. So yeah, I don't think those are going to be viable options for making PlayStation 1 videos. I'm going to have to go buy another piece of equipment so that I can record footage. It's something I said I was going to do like 2 months ago, but I didn't do it. I ended up buying another webcam instead. All right, so last week on the fail bag, I think it was Hemrock who asked this question, if I thought it was worth it to start collecting for the PS3, right, or one of the very last generation before they slide into retro gaming. Yes, 1,000 times yes. Starting with Twisted Metal, okay? Twisted Metal on the PS3. I've been into Twisted Metal lately. I got to play that game once. My older brother bought it and brought it over, and I really dug it. But I only got to play it the one time, and I've looked it up. It's only about $10 to order that off of eBay. $10 if you don't bother stalking the website and really waiting around for a deal. I mean, you could go get that for $10 like right now. Yeah, I gotta get it, man. $10, and that's the same price as like getting the classic PS1 games disc only. I paid $10 for my copy of Vigilante 8 with no case. I don't know why I did that. I don't know what possessed me to pay $10 for that game. I have to go back and look at my history. I've already forgotten. It must have been less. It must have been like $8 or something like that. But it was the $10 price bracket. The kind of money that you pay if you open up eBay with $10 to buy a game. Oh boy. That's the motto of my life is bad decisions, good games. Or maybe the other way around. Good games, bad decisions. I just threw down a bid on the long box edition of the original Twisted Metal. I want to get me a copy. I don't know. Maybe I'm not doing so well. I'm starting to spin out with this whole deep dive thing. I deep dived into a brick wall. I deep dived into an empty swimming pool, and now I'm paying the consequences. We'll see. The original Twisted Metal long box edition goes for $30. It's a $30 game if you want the nice long piece of cardboard. So I'm willing to pay $10. So I'm not going to be winning this thing, but I've been surprised before. If you want to get deals on eBay, and if you want to beat the sharks, the only thing you can do is either pay the premium or bid low, bid often, and then just cross your fingers. I've been surprised before. I'm still shocked, mostly at the Nintendo 64 acquisitions I've made. Jet Force Gemini for $5 absolutely blew me away. Perfect Dark for $5 absolutely blew me away. These were things that happened at the beginning of me getting back into physical medium, and they kept me involved with buying physical copies of games, because right out of the gate I was getting deals, or at least something that I felt was of value, even if it was just paying market price for something. At least I felt like I was getting a fair market price. $5 for either of those games is a good deal. It really is. I got other N64 games for that price, but I think those are the two I expected to pay more on. I got Forsaken for $5. That was also a good deal, but it's about what Forsaken is worth, at least on the Nintendo 64. All right. With all that said, let's go ahead and go back in time a little bit. We're going to return to the van from the beginning of this week. All right. Let's go to the van. Good morning, guys and gals. It's Monday. It's time for the van cast. I feel better this morning, I think, than I have any business feeling. I usually feel, well, it's Monday and it's raining for one thing, and I'm on my way to the office. For another thing, I woke up this morning at 4:30. Even for me, I tend to be an early bird. If I don't get up before 5, really. But 4:30 I was out of bed this morning. On the other hand, if I'm going to take time for myself, it's usually at the front end. I usually take it early in the morning. So I had a little extra time today. So I got a video recorded for my alternate channel, Hot Tea and MTG. And I got Tiger Claw Radio for last week. I got it posted, and now I'm off, getting ready to face the day. Had a pretty good weekend. It was mostly playing Worms. That was the game I was into. I played, I recently picked up Worms World Party Remastered over the Steam Team 17 publisher sale that happened about 2 weeks ago. And when I picked it up, hang on a second, I gotta merge into traffic. I've gotta get immersed. There we go. When I picked it up, there was a comment from Retro Kaiser letting me know that the online multiplayer didn't work, and I was really bummed about it because it was a cool game. I love Worms Armageddon, and Worms World Party is pretty close. It's pretty close, but it supports widescreen resolution. So I was enjoying the widescreen resolution jump. But I was bummed about the whole internet thing until I actually tried it, and I kind of investigated for myself what the situation was. The online multiplayer works just fine. The only problem is, on Worms Armageddon, they have something called like a host bot, where you don't have to host the game yourself. See, everybody in those days was using dial-up, right? So we didn't have routers to worry about, so no one had to worry about port forwarding. So in Worms Armageddon, in order to avoid port forwarding, there's a little bot set up that will host the game for you. Worms World Party doesn't have that. The bot isn't there, but you can still play and host. But you have to have somebody in your group who understands port forwarding or doesn't have a router. So the bad news is no server bot. Somebody's going to have to host and port forward. The good news is, hey, you can still do this. You can still play the game. You can still host your multiplayer games. Worms World Party on Steam, it does work online. It just takes a little bit of fixing, you know? Alright, boys and girls, I'm pulling up to the grocery store right now. I'm gonna go get some bananas for my desk for the week. We'll continue this again in just a minute here.
And about 5 minutes later...
Alright. I finished through the grocery store. Got some more seltzer water for the family, so I can have cans full of bubbly drink without drinking soda pop. That's been one of the keys to me losing weight, was getting off of soda. There's one thing I loved. It was Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola at my desk at like 9 p.m. The kids are asleep. Time to play some video games is my favorite thing in the world. So Coca-Cola was kind of a difficult hurdle in getting healthy. But I did conquer it, and seltzer water was the key to making it happen. So got another 12-pack of some, what is this, Mandarin orange seltzer water? It's guaranteed to be disgusting. But I'll keep living. Got some bananas. I'll be all set. I believe I was talking about Worms. Yeah, Worms. Worms World Party. Alright, so let's rewind the clock by about 10 years or so, give or take. Or more. Jeez Louise. We used to have Worms Armageddon for the PlayStation. Right? The original PlayStation had a Worms Armageddon release. And it was this weird game where it was only one disc for the game, but it was sold in a 2-disc box. Remember those double-wide boxes they used to sell for CDs? Certain albums that were really long would come in 2-disc albums. I remember Smashing Pumpkins had an album like that. Well, there were a couple of games that were sold that way, even though they only had one disc. The original Gran Turismo is probably the most popular example. It's only one disc, and it's sold in a 2-disc container. Well, Worms Armageddon was that way as well. When Worms World Party came out, I didn't get it on the PC. I got it on the PlayStation, disc only. And the PlayStation port, in order to make it fit on the PlayStation, they had to strip out certain features. And some of those features were present in Worms Armageddon. You follow me? Let me explain that a little bit better. Worms Armageddon came out on the PlayStation. Then Worms World Party came on the PlayStation with even less features. It was really weird. So in those days, I had a really negative opinion of Worms World Party. Specifically, to give you an example of a feature that was missing, Worms Armageddon allows you to have up to 8 worms in your team. So if you could have 2 teams with 16 worms total, right? 16 or 8 on 8, 16 worm game. Worms World Party, the team's maxed out at 4 worms. That's the number of worms you can have on a team is like a front and center feature that really affects the rest of the game in a big way. It's not just like one particular game mode was messed up. That's pretty big in my opinion. So this was me getting Worms World Party and giving it a second try, and I gotta say, I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying it. I don't know how much of it is remastered, because I read that it's not really remastered much at all. But it's got controller support, which Worms Armageddon doesn't have. The sound effects sound really good. It's got widescreen support. It just doesn't have the active multiplayer that Worms Armageddon has, which really sucks. But I play a lot of Worms locally with my children, so I'm really glad I got it. It's cool, man. I dig it. Especially since I got it for $3. $15, I think I'd be a little disappointed. Maybe. I don't know. But that's Worms. I also tried a game called Worms Clan Wars, which is weird because I had it in my Steam collection and I don't remember buying it. So I went to the store page to take a look, and it's a $25 Worms game. It's like, yeah, no, I didn't buy this. This must have went on sale. I probably picked it up for like $2 or something without thinking a long time ago. Oh boy, it's raining now. All right, so let's fast forward to the end of the Worms thing. I tried Worms Clan Wars. I loved what they were trying to do, but they made too many changes to the way the game is played. There's certain keys on the keyboard you've pressed since the beginning of the franchise that they tried to change, and I wasn't really down with that. I also played one of the 3D iterations. I don't remember what it's called, and I really couldn't get down with that. I loved the way it looked, the 3D Worms, but I couldn't figure out how to aim properly, and it was just too difficult to play. So that was it. It was a Worms weekend for me. Also, I think I must have read this after TCR was reported last week. But that story about IGN came out. Now, IGN got in trouble. Specifically, one writer from IGN had plagiarized somebody's review, or allegedly plagiarized somebody's review. I guess the guy's name was Boomstick Reviews, I believe, and Boomstick put out a video saying, "Hey man, this IGN guy ripped me off," and he played the clips back to back, and it was pretty spot on. It was pretty damning footage, in my opinion. So I just kind of wrote it off, like, yeah, what are you gonna do? The little YouTubers, the guys who are just trying to scrape together a small viewing, we get taken advantage of, on a daily basis. So I just kind of threw my hands up and was like, go figure. But then it came out that particular writer did this like over and over and over again. And look, I'm not upset at this point that IGN had a writer on staff who was plagiarizing every single review. I'm not really upset about that, because I already am really suspicious of the big reviewers like IGN and Polygon and all those. I'm really I try and keep those companies at arm's length, because I feel like they're pretty far removed from what the actual game playing consumer really thinks. So that didn't bother me so much. What bothered me was that meant that there was a guy somewhere who had a journalism degree, who couldn't even play a game long enough and then come up with what he thought about it. It's like such a simple job, a job that, now I understand, yes, there's work involved, but all of the rest of us who have to peel out of bed, at 4:30 in the morning and have to go into the office, or, God forbid, swing a shovel, those of us who really have to work for a living, I think it's really like spitting in our face in a big way. But the guy did lose his job with IGN, so at least I can say that it wasn't like a common, at least I can say that it's not like a standardized practice at IGN. At least it wasn't something that the company was getting behind. If they were like, well, it kind of looks close, but it's parallel thought, and you can't really tell based on these clips, then I would have been really upset. That would have been something else altogether. But I don't think that's the case here. I think this was just one lazy guy who wanted to get paid for doing nothing, acting dumb. Just get up, go to work, and do your job. Is it really that much to ask? Just do your job. It's okay that you're far removed from what the average gamer thinks. We all know that by now. Just, whatever you're going to write, just write it. At least, do your own work. Stop trying to look on other people's paper in class, That's what bothers me about this more than anything else. More than a little YouTuber being taken advantage of, which is the sheer wall-to-wall carpeting of laziness. Because how long do you really think it takes to transcript somebody's review, change a few words here and there, and record it? He was probably doing an entire week's work inside of an afternoon. And getting paid a week's wages for it. That makes me upset to think about on Monday morning driving to work in the rain. You know what I'm saying? At a time in where every day I'm summoning the strength to smash right through my problems like the Kool-Aid Man. Oh yeah! Got big problems on Monday, lots of stuff in the office, lots of trouble. Oh yeah! Smashing right through it. That's how we handle it. And there's a guy who couldn't do it. Couldn't summon the strength to Kool-Aid Man right through the walls. Oh yeah! So that's all I have to say about that. I mean, I read an article top to bottom, didn't just read the headline, and that was the extent of the research I cared to do, because this is more of the same. This is not, and that's another thing. This is not a game-changing story. It really isn't. This is talk about why would I keep the big-name reviewers at arm's length? Why do I get suspicious when I hear the name IGN or Polygon or GameSpot or any of those? This is why. The fact that this was not super surprising, I think, is why. And it's a good reason. Good reason to keep those companies at arm's length. All right, how are we doing now? Oh boy, I'm getting on the highway. This is where it gets super dangerous. I'm merging onto I try and get off of the podcast before I merge onto the highway, just because it's so dangerous, especially in the rain on Monday morning. But too late now. Get immersed, son, because we're immersing onto the highway. Oh boy. Traffic is moving. What are we doing? We're doing 30 miles an hour southbound on the highway. Oh, it's starting to slow down a little bit. People drive crazy in the rain. I don't know. Somewhere along the highway, one person forgot that rain makes the road slippery and probably spun out like a top, smashed into the Jersey wall, and now the rest of us are doing, oh man, I'm down to 20 miles an hour? 20 miles an hour for it. It's rain. Water falls from the sky. You have to adjust your behavior accordingly. All right, the third and final thing I was going to talk about not too much, but just a little bit, was I set up my Magic the Gathering online account over the weekend. This is the game that where they have a card economy, and the cards are sold individually, right? So it's not like Duels of the Planeswalkers, where every card is just within the software package and you can unlock it in game. No, this is, you pay $10 and you get an account, and they give you 1,400 cards, between 1,400 and 1,500 cards. And if you want more cards, you're buying those cards individually. So, but it comes with enough cards to make a deck. Hemrock has this game. I wanted to play with Hemrock, so I bought it. $10, opened up the account. Now, I have a CD-ROM for Magic the Gathering Online from 10 years ago. And this is the same game I'm playing now. I played it last night. Let's see. I played 6 games and won 2 of them. So I took a little bit of a shellacking, but again, I'm just using the starting cards, so that's okay. I did like how scalable it was. It's a 10-year-old game. No, I take it back. I believe it's like an 18-year-old game or something. It's really old by now. So I was able to run it on my little junky laptop with no problem. And that's it. I just set it up, and I've only played 6 games, so I'll probably wait till next week before I comment any further on Magic the Gathering Online. But hey, man, you know, for $10, it seems like it's okay. Right? I'm holding it to the same standard. I should be able to get 10 hours of fun out of this package before needing to buy any more cards. And I've played it for probably like 2 hours. I guess 3 hours if you consider the time I spent sitting down to put a deck together, which should count. Alright, that's Magic the Gathering Online. I'm done talking about that. Now, what would I do, boys and girls, if yours truly was turning this car around, driving home and playing video games? All the talk about Worms has got me going about Worms. I'd probably play Worms. I would probably fire up that 3D Worms game one more time, because I still want to figure out exactly how it works before I write it off. I'd probably fire that up, play it for like 10 minutes, get frustrated, and then go back and play some bots matches in Worms World Party. That's what I would do. You know, another thing about Worms World Party is I can't seem to find any add-ons. Worms Armageddon's got a good amount of add-ons out there. You can get custom gravestones, custom flags, custom speech banks. I couldn't find any of that for World Party. I don't know if it's the same files and they just work for both, but I don't know. I didn't have much luck. But alright, that's going to be it for this time, boys and girls. I will send you guys back to the studio where it's dry and where you don't have to worry about going to the office. I'll see you there.
Welcome back, everybody. So this is just a quick reminder. This is a time I like to set aside to thank the patrons of the podcast. They do give their resources to make sure this show comes back every week. And to them, I can provide early access to Tiger Claw Radio. They get it as soon as it's finished. They also get access to the monthly podcast entitled The After Party. And I also read their names off in a hall of distinguished gentlemen here on the air. And they are Hemrock, James, Sendu, Tecmo Balls, Darabka, and the Cartridge Brothers. Thank you guys very much. I really appreciate your support. Okay, let's head back to Chiptunes Equals Win. We're going to hear another chiptune. This is it's a compilation chiptune album which has just come out this past Tuesday, and you can go pick it up off of their Bandcamp by naming your price. You're listening to Tiger Claw Radio. That's Breakbeat Heartbeat with the track It's Not the Same off of Chiptunes Equals Win Volume 7. I was listening to it on the way to work yesterday. It's a good chiptune compilation album. I would highly recommend it, gentlemen, for your consumption. Well, all right, boys and girls, we're gonna head back to the van one more time. We got one more van cast, and then we'll read some comments.
Tuesday morning. Good morning, everybody. Now, it is a little bit rainy outside. It is a little bit gray. But I think this is the first morning where I really noticed it's dark outside driving to work. And that's how I know that the summer is just about over. And we're heading into fall. Fall's my favorite time of year. It really is. It's always been my favorite time of year. I remember even as far back as the 90s, walking out in my flannel shirts, seeing the leaves change color and all that kind of stuff. It's really a good time. So yeah, it's a little dark outside, it's a little gloomy, but on the other hand, I like the fact that it means that fall is coming. Alright, so let's talk about some video games. Vigilante 8 just showed up in the mail yesterday. I filmed a brief unboxing this morning, and then who knows how long that's going to take to make it to the internet, but I got Vigilante 8. That's what it comes down to. I've been talking to Hemrock, and I have had a bit of a back and forth here on the show about making reviews, doing some scripts and like old scripted essay type reviews, not just like popping something in and say, hey, let's give this a try, but really digging in and writing an essay. And I think it would be fun to do that for an original PlayStation game. Hey man, when I left off doing those, it was an original PlayStation game I was going after, right? Suikoden, that was supposed to be the next big review I was working on that people would actually ask me about. That's the original PlayStation game. I even went as far as to record a ton of footage. I played a lot of that game. I played like 6 hours just of capturing footage and taking down notes and stuff. It feels like kind of a shame to let all that go to waste. But at the same time, that was so long ago, I also feel like I have to play it again to just remember what the game was like. But yeah, original PlayStation is on my mind right now. I would say I'm still, I'm not coming out of my quote-unquote deep dive, which is this phase I have named, rather than spending a bunch of money buying new games every week for a little while. I just, dig into my collection. Opening up a new format to record in and make content for would be a great way to make use of the collection I already have. I have some pretty cool PlayStation games, man. One game that's not cool per se, but I think would be fun to make a video for, is the game Po'd. You guys know this game? Alright, let's go back in time. In the old days, my favorite kind of game, hands down, was first-person shooters. This was like the pre-Call of Duty Modern Warfare era. Back when a lot of first-person shooters were sprite-based, in something some people call the 2.5D era. Those games at the time were the greatest games ever. So Po'd was a first-person shooter that came out during this time. Now, I bought it disc only, and it was like 15 years ago, or something like that. And that disc, which I'm pretty sure I still have, has been in my machine all of maybe twice, maybe 3 times, but I doubt it. It's weird, it's strange looking, it's difficult to play, and I seem to remember it being pretty slow and choppy. But it's pretty bizarre. Pretty bizarre. I think it would be fun to throw it in the machine, take some notes, and just see where it takes us. Good old Po'd. I remember more about the magazine ads than I do about the actual game. A first-person shooter where you play as a chef, I guess, and you're fighting like glob monsters or something. I've got to dig it out and make sure I still have it.
put it in again, see what I remember. Yeah, man, first-person shooters from the early PlayStation era were great. Here's another great game that I don't hear ever talked about. Nobody ever gives this game love. Disruptor! Disruptor was an amazing game. You guys know Insomniac Games? Their first game was a first-person shooter called Disruptor. And all the cutscenes were done in Hollywood era FMV live-action storyline cutscenes. Even back when we got that game, I remember watching that thinking, this was like a really terrible UPN show. If you guys remember UPN. This is like a spin-off of a spin-off of Andromeda or something. But they were terrible cutscenes that were tacked onto a game that I really liked. It was a really strong first-person shooter. You had guns, and you also had psionics, which operated off of a different shared form of ammunition. The levels were varied and different. The level design was very easy to follow. It wasn't the kind of game you would get lost in a lot. It was a good game. I really liked Disruptor. I don't think I own it anymore. I would love to own it again, but that was a game I had a lot of fun with back in the day. Alright, so what would I do if I went back home? Well, the first thing I would do if I went back home was I'd fire up my copy of Quake Champions. Quake Champions has a thing where if you log into the game every day, you get some sort of bonus. So I've been logging in every day. A lot like a mobile game. That's the kind of thing mobile games have to hook you into playing as much as possible. But I like the fact that they recognize, hey, we need to keep our player base alive. This is a game that depends on us having a player base. So you get an incentive for coming back to play. And I think once a week, every fifth or sixth day, they give you like $2 of in-game credit or something. Like the bonuses they give you are actually pretty substantial if you keep coming back to play day after day. So the first thing I'd do is I would log into Quake Champions. Which, by the way, Quake Champions, good game. My opinion of Quake Champions was a complete 180. I was hating on it when I first heard about it. Then I finally dug into the free-to-play, and I dig it. I haven't spent a dime on it, but I'm digging it. I have spent 11 hours on it, so you can make the decision which one of those two things is more valuable. But I'll tell you what, after I did my quick pop into Quake Champions, I'd get my emulator set up on my computer. I'd get an emulator set up so that I could play PlayStation games, and I would play Vigilante 8, because I just opened Vigilante 8 this morning, and I didn't have time to put it in the machine, take a look at all. I basically just pulled the disc out of the case, and that was all I had time for, because I had to go to work now. That would be fun to play that game. It really would. And then should be all the new video games I need for, a little while longer, a couple more weeks or so. I got my copy of Twisted Metal 2 that I got like 2 months ago, and I got Vigilante 8 now. Both of those games were huge time sinks for me as a kid. I think it would be awesome to get those rigged up. You know what would be really awesome is to get my older brother over at my place. One of those old-fashioned, pizza and game nights. Have some pizza, play some games, henceforth the name Pizza and Game Night. Well, alright, boys and girls, that's all I got for this particular edition of the Bandcast. I'm pretty sure Chiptunes Equals Win number 7 is out now. I think it came out right after I finished recording last week, so we should be able to enjoy some more of that. I'll see you guys back in the studio.
Back again, safe and sound in the studio. It's time for the fail bag. Excuse me. Questions, comments, anything you have. You want to be a part of the show? Write in. Let me know. Head over to tigerclawtv.com. Leave a comment. Actually, YouTube is probably the best way, but you guys know me. Any way you want to get a hold of me. Let's see what's up. First thing in the fail bag, we actually got an audio comment from good old Balzac. It's been a while. Good to hear from him. All right, so let's see what he's got.
Okay, this haven't done this in a while, so I have a lot to get to. But first of all, you were mentioning original Xbox games on episode 247, I think, to Hemrock, and you didn't mention the Spy vs. Spy game on the original Xbox, which that's a pretty good game, and that's the one that actually you recommended to me way back in early 2011 when I sent you an email asking what original Xbox games I should get, since this was back when the only thing I knew about the original Xbox was Halo, and I guess some rare games like Grabbed by the Ghoulies and Conquer Live and Reloaded, and maybe like a few others, but I can't really remember them right now. So yeah, and that's a pretty good game. Anyways, Doom Night, huh? That's coming back. That sounds pretty exciting because I remember it coming to, I think, one of them back in 2010, maybe one or two of them. And then after that, you switched to Team Fortress Classic, and that was, in my opinion, a little bit better, but maybe that's because we were using Steam instead of some, the shady program. I think it was called Skull Tag we used back in the day. Yeah, that always gave me problems. It always gave everybody else problems as well. But probably nowadays, I could figure out how to work it now, since there's probably a lot of YouTube videos out there to help me anyways if I ever run into any problems. But I'm going to throw this out there. How about for one of these nights we could use X-Link Kai? It's kind of it's kind of a thing where you plug your either PS2 or original Xbox into your laptop or computer or your desktop, and you can literally just play with people all over the world through LAN. The console will think it's LAN, but you could technically play with anybody around the world as long as they have these original consoles. And I was thinking of maybe we should set up a night for that, since I know you and I think Hemrock, since he says he plays Morrowind on the original Xbox, have original Xboxes. And I know Jerry, he has a couple of them, so maybe if we could get the time, we could all play together and, fight it out. And that Spy vs. Spy game I was just mentioning, or I know you have Halo 2, and I think you have one of the Call of Duties that probably have LAN, since it is a first-person shooter on the original Xbox. So I'd imagine almost all of them have LAN support. And there's another one I would recommend, which is Time Splitters 2. That's pretty good as well, because you could play as a lot of different weird characters, like a monkey, or I don't remember the rest of them, but I know all I can remember is the monkey for some reason. So look into that, X-Link Kai, because we should definitely try that out, since I've been really getting into that lately because I was able to fix the LAN port on my laptop, so now I could actually get that stuff running. And that's about it for now. So might as well end this with a question, like I always do. Opinions on the original Spyro games on the PlayStation 1. So Spyro 1, 2, and 3. Because the remasters are coming out for those games. They're literally remaking all three of those games for PS4 and Xbox One. And I don't know if a PC, probably it will, but not on when it launches, which is going to be in November. Because, originally these games were supposed to come out in September, but I think everybody heard the news saying that the first game was only on the disc, and the other two games you have to actually download them. So probably that's the reason why they delayed it, is so they could actually put all three games on the physical disc instead of just one. So November, that's when that comes out. But I'm kind of hyped for that. So I'm just starting to get off topic, so I'll just keep it like this. Just opinions on the original Spyro games for the PlayStation. I would imagine you played them, since you're you were a PlayStation nut back in the late 90s. So yeah, I just want to okay, that's about it. Okay, see you next time. Okay, bye.
Balzac, brother, it's good to hear from you, my man. So you got a few really good points in your comment that I want to go over. Let's start at the beginning. Spy vs. Spy for the original Xbox. I discovered that game doing research for my Spy vs. Spy video. And I looked it up after listening to your audio comment, and it runs about $17 to $20. So a lot of the original Xbox games are still low in price, but that one's got some meat to it. You're right. That one is worth getting. And I had completely forgotten. So yes, Hemrock adds Spy vs. Spy to your original Xbox games collection. Now let's talk about the old school Doom Night. We used to use Skull Tag, right? Well, Skull Tag was disbanded. The team that made it has separated, and
the much of the remaining team got together to form a new program called Zandronum. And Zandronum, if you run it, is almost identical to the old school Skulltag. And Zandronum is what we use now. Basically, the idea is you have the JZ Doom source port, and then you have that makes Doom look and run in a modern sort of way, where you have WASD to move, and then you have mouse look controls, more modern FPS controls. And then it also comes packaged with Doom Seeker, which is a separate program used to find multiplayer games. Zandronum takes those two programs and it packages them together in like an easy net play kind of package. So it's very much like Skulltag, actually, but it's not that difficult. The only thing I remember everyone having issues with when it came to Skulltag was you had to also have the original Doom2.wad, and you had to set up your directory to know where Doom2.wad was. That was the only problem. It's a little easier now, but we should be able to get it up and running. Most of the people who I think are coming have played some Doom 2 recently and know how it goes down. So tell you what, Balzac, go get Zandronum, and I'm sure it'll work just fine. Now, to your point, we did eventually move on to playing Team Fortress, and those Team Fortress Classic nights were amazing. They really were. That is an awesome game. I would also be up for some Team Fortress Classic at some point. Okay, let's talk about X-Link Kai. I looked this up after you talked about it. Taking a PS2 or an original Xbox, using an Ethernet cable to hook that to your computer and getting it online that way through sort of a daisy chain. I think that's a brilliant idea, man. I got the website bookmarked. Now, in your comment, it sounded like you were focusing on the original Xbox. And it's true, I do have an original Xbox. I would be up for purchasing a game that we were going to center on. If we focused on a particular game, it wouldn't really matter if I had it in my collection or not. I would buy it. But you focused on the original Xbox. But I was intrigued at the thought of doing the PS2, right? PS2, you said, would work as well. That had some games I wouldn't have minded playing online. And there's games that are, super dirt cheap as well. I think the SOCOM series started on was a PS2 staple, right? Let's see. Those games just get given away. I want to see. I'm looking up SOCOM on PS2 right now. There it is, SOCOM 2, U.S. Navy SEALs for $2.96, disc only. I'd buy that. Oh, there it is for $4 with the box. Yeah, man, there's some stuff to that. Weirdly enough, when I think about online play, usually the game that comes to mind for the PS2 is Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3. Look, I know those Tony Hawk games, like they're kind of a thing of the past. They're not as cool now as they used to be. But when Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 was out, I loved it. I was like, at that time, these games were like the best games out there, at least in my opinion. Finally, we come to the original Spyro the Dragon. All right, now I'm going to have to disappoint you a little bit on this one. I have never played the original Spyro the Dragon. When those games came out, let's see, I was playing a lot of... I had just got my Nintendo 64 at that time, and I was playing a lot of Super Mario 64, really playing through Super Mario 64 for the first time. I didn't. I kind of thought they were kids versions of kids versions of Crash Bandicoot at the time. They looked good, and the people around me seemed to really like them, but I never got into them. And then eventually, it reached a point where they started to go up in price. And now, if you want to get the original Spyro the Dragon, it's like $15, $20. They're still around, but I just never took the plunge. I even looked them up, like in the last year, a couple of times to try and add them to my PS1 collection, because, I'm into the PS1. I love those games. There's a lot of really good games to the PS1. But yeah, they're not cheap, so the HD collection coming out might be a perfect way for me to really take those games in for the first time. So in short, never played them, but they do have my interest. Thanks again for the audio comment, Balzac. The whole audio comment thing seems to be like a lost artifact of a past era in podcasting. So I always really dig those when you send them in. Thanks, man. All right, we got one from Hemrock, and he writes, "Hey CF, thank you for another episode, and thank you for reading my email. It's funny that you mentioned Michael Jordan playing baseball. I actually have his rookie card as part of my old sports card collection. Here's a picture. I wonder if it's worth anything. Spoiler alert, I just checked eBay, and it's not. Just to interrupt the email, the fact that it's not worth anything, as much as I know it sucks to dig up your old memorabilia and discover it's not worth anything, I would like to own one of those and add it to my collection. Let's get back to the email. I played some MTG online this weekend, and I'm still McLovin' it. I bought a new deck today, and it cost me a grand total of $2. So far, it's performed rather well. Again, like I mentioned, just let me know if/when you want to play. I'd love to start a little league in the forums if the other communities are interested. Oh, yeah, man. I'm totally game. We should, I'm going out tonight, Friday night, when this is being recorded, and Saturday, I think we've got Doom Night, but I'm definitely up for Magic the Gathering Online. I bought it so we could play. That's the reason I decided to get into it, is so that we could give it a shot. My deck is losing. I'm having a difficult time getting going, but I'm up for it for sure. Getting back to the email, he writes, keep going with your MTG YouTube channel. I enjoy it. Thanks, man. I've not played Enclave for the Xbox as of writing this email. However, I'll try to send a follow-up if I get into it this week. Now for the Epic of Manjaro. So I attempted to install Manjaro on my PC. This threw my computer into the worst conniption fit I've ever seen in front of an inanimate object. When I reset it after the install, it refused to boot, and all I got was a BIOS screen and a broken grub menu. As an inside, for those who are the uninitiated in the ways of Linux, the grub menu is what allows you to enter different operating systems when you have both Linux and Windows installed on the same machine, such as myself. I spent literal hours trying to get that computer to work. I reinstalled Manjaro at least twice, if not 3 times. I watched multiple YouTube videos. I even went to the Manjaro wiki and followed their instructions for fixing a broken grub menu, and nothing worked. I went so far as formatting my Windows partition in an effort to kill the grub menu completely. No such luck. I was still greeted with the grub screen of death, and at this point I had no operating systems running, but I was still getting this silly menu. Well, in any case, I tried installing Windows 10 again, and it worked. Killed the grub screen as I'd hoped. Then I installed Manjaro, and I was able to run them both on my PC. The grub menu works, but it does not recognize my Windows partition, so in order to change OSs, I have to reconfigure the BIOS. It's not ideal, but at least my PC isn't an oversized paperweight. Nevertheless, to add insult to injury, when I was blocking all the Microsoft spyware again, I had to restart from scratch, and I noticed that Bill and the bunch pulled from the last one. Wait. I'm starting to lose my place in this email. Give me a second. I had to start from scratch, and I noticed that Bill and the bunch pulled a fast one on me. Okay, I gotcha. When I reinstalled Windows and used my original install DVD, but during the process, they asked what version I wanted to choose, Home or Pro. Well, I thought to myself, I didn't realize I purchased both, so of course I chose Pro. After spending an hour or so reconfiguring that mess of an OS, I was told my Windows version could not be authenticated. What? I purchased this fair and square, and I was reinstalling it on the same computer. How could it not be authenticated? Well, come to find out, Microsoft will put both versions of the operating system on the install disk, even though you only purchased one of them. And thus, I had to once again reinstall Windows 10 and make sure I chose the home version, all the while hoping that it doesn't jack up my grub menu. In any case, I was able to install the same version, which did authenticate, and it spent the next 2 hours or so getting the thing back up to speed. In spite of all that, I can say my initial impression is that I like Manjaro more than Linux Mint. I got both Alpha Centauri and Civilization 2 Gold Edition to run with little effort, and I never got Civ 2 to work completely on a Linux distro. It's also faster than Mint, but that's not saying much because my Linux Mint setup was one of the slowest operating systems I've ever used as far as boot time. I'm probably going to stick with Manjaro for the foreseeable future, and since it has a rolling release and theoretically will never require a major install update. It's good to hear from Kaiser the Kool-Aid Man again. I enjoyed the Uncharted Waters discussion. I picked up Uncharted Waters New Horizons on the Wii Virtual Console before Nintendo pulled the plug.
I forgot or just never knew the game was on Sega Genesis. I wonder how the NES version differs. You mentioned Space Cadet Pinball. Space Cadet is one of my favorite games that came pre-installed in Windows. Unfortunately, Vista killed it. According to Wikipedia, the game was pulled because there was a collision detection bug with the 64-bit operating systems. Ironically, I can run the game on my 64-bit Manjaro OS perfectly using Wine. I just played a game and got 817,250 points. I don't think it's a very good score, but the game is still fun to play, even to this day. It would be cool to have a live TCR with an ongoing chat between the listeners. I believe you're trying to save money for things besides buying Sega Saturn, so to replace a weekly cheap Sega Saturn game, I will recommend a free PC game. This one comes from the Ludum Dare competition. It's called Card Horde, and you can find it here. I would describe it as a puzzle platformer. I won't mention any more except to encourage you to give it a go, and perhaps a 2 or 3 sentence review on TCR. Nintendo has been quickly shutting down major ROM sites recently. I wonder if Nintendo is preparing to release an NES collection on the 3DS, Switch, or even Steam like Sega has done in the past. Any thoughts? Did you hear about the journalists at IGN plagiarizing a YouTube review of the game Dead Cells? Here's a link to the news. It makes me wonder how much longer these professional game journalism organizations can exist when we have more indie sources for gaming information like YouTube. Take care and keep rolling retro. Hamrock, my man, good to hear from you, brother. Lots of good stuff in this email. Let's go back to the beginning. Enclave. Oh, yeah, wait. There was a follow-up that he sent about Enclave. We're going to read that in just a minute. That is a lot of trouble to get Manjaro rolling, man. I'm definitely sorry about that. And I'm glad you got it up and running, though. And I'm glad you seem to like it. Because could you imagine going through all that, finally getting into Manjaro, and then just thinking it's no good? That would have been terrible. It's really cool that you got Alpha Centauri and Civ 2 working. I hear that there is a thing about native Windows games from Steam just get up and running on Linux natively. I haven't read the news. I don't know the details, but I'm told we're on the precipice of the whole Steam, the vast majority of the Steam library opening up to Linux users. And that is mighty big news indeed. Let's see what else we got here. Kaiser the Kool-Aid Man. Yep, he's awesome. Uncharted Waters you talked a little bit about. I've been told that there is a patch, there's an English patch for those those traditional Chinese games that were released on Steam. So it would be cool to play those. Space Cadet Pinball, that's what I wanted to get to. All right. I had this weird idea. There was a thing that was going on about, do you remember when Carl from Scenic 7 PR, he was working on that Gaming on Batteries magazine, which I think is still going. I know he's still doing a magazine at some point. And then Mondo Cool Monthly was out. Jerry Terrifying had his own magazine. And it seemed like running a small-time video games magazine was the thing to do. I had a weird idea to put out a monthly magazine that was one page, a one-page PDF. And on that one page would be a collection of high scores that have come out this past month. Things from me, from you guys, and from anybody else I can find. And the reason I would make it a one-page PDF is the idea that you could then print it and have it live in your lap when you played games. So you would see very small high scoreboards in games that you might have. You're like, hey, what games are we playing this month? And there'd be like 7 or 8 games, and you'd have a little high scoreboard and then an open space you can pen in your own scores in. It's kind of a weird idea. It would take some fixing. I would need some help to do it. But I always talk about doing high score battles here on the air. That seems like a good way to go. And what better game to be featured in issue 1 of Tiger Claw Radio's one-page magazine than Space Cadet Pinball. I was when I heard your score, I was excited to get it reinstalled, which I still haven't done yet. I want to give that game another shot. I don't have it on this computer. I believe one of my laptops has it all set up. But yeah, Space Cadet was awesome. It was really good. All right, you talked about Card Hoarder. I did try that game. It reminds me a lot of Super Puzzle Platformer, and that you have the puzzle pieces falling and you're jumping on top of them. Super Puzzle Platformer didn't give you a way to shoot the tiles. But to be fair, I only played it for like 10 minutes to see if it would work, and it did. So, 3-sentence review coming next week on Card Hoarder. Apart from that, I can tell you that the winners of the Ludum Dare games are usually super creative and lots of fun. So, very awesome to hear about, my man. There's an option, if you look that game up, to download it, right? Because it's a browser game. And I went through the download process, and what I got was not like a playable executable. I got a construct file, because it was developed in either Construct or Construct 2. So that was a shame that I couldn't download it and play it locally, because that's how I like my freeware, when at all possible. I like to download the executables, just keep them in a file and sort of run them myself. Yeah, Nintendo's pulling the plug on as many ROM sites as they can. The only one I heard about being lost was Emu Paradise. Did we lose any other sites apart from Emu Paradise? I mean, the ROMs are still easily accessible, as far as I know. So go get yourself a full ROM set now, if that's your thing. But again, it's 2018. We've had ROMs and emulation have been in the picture since the late 90s. So they're kind of too late when it comes to the spread of ROMs. But I don't know. We'll see. Let them do what they're going to do. I guess it's their intellectual property. We'll just have to see what comes of it. What else you got here? Yeah, IGN was caught plagiarizing. It was isolated to one particular writer, but at the same time, it's pretty damning. It's quite disgraceful behavior. But you're talking about an industry that's survived masses of disgraceful behavior. So. Unfortunately, I don't think this is going to put any real dent in their credibility. Because their credibility, as far as I'm concerned, to anyone who's paying attention, has been gone for a long time. But that's just the musings of a bitter old man. Hemrock writes this follow-up. He says, "Hey again, CF. You previously asked me what I thought about Enclave for the OG Xbox, so here's my short review. Enclave is a third-person hack-and-slash video game for the original Xbox. It was also released on the PS2 and GameCube, plus Windows, and even Linux. Here you are, set in a somewhat steampunk fantasy world, a la Warhammer. These are 2 campaigns, either good or evil. I put about 5 hours into playing the campaign for the good guys. In each level, you control a single character who has to fight his way through multiple baddies, collect the obligatory gold, and occasionally solve small puzzles. You unlock characters as you go, and so far I've unlocked the Huntress and the Druid. There is, in addition to the warrior you start out with, according to the box, 12 characters in total. After finishing the first spot on the map, you can choose which character you would like to use for the next level, as well as equip them with according to the amount of gold you've collected. Each level contains a certain amount of gold, which the game will tell you the maximum amount possible for that area in advance. Collecting this money is the primary way of improving your character, as it appears there's no skills mechanic. You just simply buy the best armor, weapons, accessories, etc. Because of this, many people, it may prove necessary to revisit previous levels in order to unlock gold that you bypassed the first time. This adds a level of tedium to the gameplay, but it also rewards exploration. Nevertheless, some of the initial levels can be quite large and rather difficult in this rather difficult Xbox title. It's frustrating playing a second or third time in order to find loot, only to lose when you're about halfway through the level because you missed a jump and fell to your death. On a more positive note, I really enjoyed the medieval fantasy aesthetic and the cutscenes which told the story through the use of an illustrated antique tome. The graphics are not half bad for the era, and I'd put that a notch or 2 above the original Morrowind. All in all, Enclave is an okay game. It reminds me of a poor man's Lord of the Rings 2 Towers, another similar game in the same genre which came out around the same time. If you really enjoy hack-and-slash games of this type, you may enjoy this one. However, if you're looking for an in-depth RPG experience, you'd best look elsewhere. As an aside, it comes as an M-rated game, but surprisingly there's an option to turn off the blood if that's important to you. In conclusion, I give Enclave 5 out of 10 gold coins. Take care and keep rolling retro, Hemrock. Well, there you go. There's your preview of Enclave, guys. If you have any interest, it's for sale on Steam, and you can get. Hey, I got eBay open right now. Still, let's see how much Enclave goes for the original Xbox. Xbox Enclave. Let's give it a shot. Disc only $5. Complete in box 15. Complete in box 20. What is happening with the original Xbox games? It looks like they're skyrocketing. You can get it for, it looks like $7 is the average. Oh boy. All right, we're returning to doing podcasting. I cut out for a second there and did my entire workday. So let's do this. I've got a couple more comments over on YouTube. I'm going to jump over to YouTube real quick. We're an hour and 12 minutes in. I'm almost done. I just want to make sure and answer these comments, and then we'll be able to wrap it up for the week. Okay. So we got Desm 101 and What's on My Shelf. Two of my favorite people leaving comments. Let's start with Desm. Desm was responding to, last week we talked about some pinball on the Sega Saturn. Hyper 3D Pinball isn't bad. It's similar to Epic Pinball or True Pinball. You can play the normal top-down view or the 3D view, which looks cool but can be more difficult to play. I remember playing the old Space Cadet table a lot when it came to Windows back in the day, and the full version looks like a nice little upgrade. I'm down to try a high score battle. How about an NES game like Rollerball or High Speed, or the original Nintendo Pinball? Alright, Desm. Here's the thing. You listed a bunch of stuff in there. There's no reason we couldn't throw down in any one of those games. Alright, my man. Here's how we're going to do this. I have a text file open. Let me see if I can revisit Hemrock's email. Drop down to the bottom. Where's it at here? Where's the score that Hemrock did? Come on now. I'm going to Control F for Space Cadet. There it is. Yeah. So on Space Cadet, we're going to write this down. Space Cadet. The current high score held by Hemrock is 817,250. 817,250. Hemrock. That's what we got to beat. I've got to go figure out if I can reinstall Space Cadet, and we'll see about that. What else have we got? We've got Rollerball. We've got the original Pinball for the Nintendo. I don't have the original one for the Nintendo. I have that game for the Famicom. I believe it's the same game, but that's what I'm going to play. We'll just run scores on all of them. Why not? Rollerball, I have a few standing scores in my high score book, which I've been writing scores in for the last 10 years. I'll see if I can remember. I'll dig that up next week. We'll compare some Rollerball scores, and we'll just see who the king is. See if we can push the envelope a little bit. I haven't played original Pinball in a long time. That would be great. What else did you do? High Speed? High Speed I don't think I've ever played seriously. High Speed on NES. I will look those up. And we'll compare scores. So, all right, Desm, just get your pinball out and start writing some numbers down. Whatever game it is, start writing some scores down so we can go back and forth and try and beat each other. I know Hemrock and I have thrown down in Rollerball before, but it's been a lot of years. So we'll see what's up. That would be great. Let's do it, man. The single-page video game magazine is going to be a thing. We're going to make that happen. A little PDF, maybe not even a PDF, maybe just a doc file that you can print out on your machine and run scores on. And that's how we're going to start it. The first issue is going to be all about pinball. Give me a second here. Pinball scores. All right, I've got the notes. I'm going to make this happen. What's on My Shelf writes in, still taking notes for MCC. I marked the same Bethesda article as something of interest. What the heck? I share the same sentiment. It's not that they are allowed to take down... It's not that they're allowed to take down the guy's game. It's that the guy didn't want to spend the money to argue against Bethesda. I wonder if he could have represented himself to a judge in a pre-trial proceedings for free. Maybe the judge would throw the case out. We got a few replies on that one. Alex Swingle writes, the dude still sold the item on eBay. The whole issue is Amazon works in cahoots and unquestionably supports any major company. Beachbody does it all the time without lawyers. They just notify Amazon and the listing gets taken down. Somebody had a dog in the hunt, with that one because it was overblown. What's on my shelf, right? So it's Amazon that flinches at first sight of being sued. That's disappointing. If Bethesda puffed their chest and pulled their products from Amazon in retort to Amazon protecting sellers' right, wouldn't Bethesda be cutting their face in spite? How long would they cut out of this huge revenue stream before they realized they need Amazon? I wonder what their lawyers have cooked up that makes them think they could squeeze a dime out of Amazon in a potential lawsuit. The issue seems moot. It would be a less dangerous precedent for all the secondhand goods sales if Bethesda won the lawsuit. We might end up like Japan in the 80s and 90s. Swingle writes, it's a policy enforced by Bethesda to maintain a price range of their products. Many brands like Nike have a minimum price threshold and require an authorized reseller. Most companies have a limited shelf life when they enforce those standards, but Bethesda seems to have a longer lifespan than others. The weird thing is Amazon already has in place a method to automatically block unauthorized listings, meaning Bethesda did not maintain their page properly with auto block update that rolled out last year. He goes on to say, it wouldn't change current legal policy. What they're doing has been established since 1992-ish, when someone wanted to resell sealed textbooks out of the country. As long as the item is sealed, the company at any time can prevent the sale of that item. It's dumb, but so are most intellectual property laws. In other words, sell on eBay and never worry about selling new products on Amazon. All the reasons they gave in the follow-up articles were lies to trick the dum-dums. Very depressing news. Also, I think there's one part of those comments that I just kind of glossed over. You're still taking notes from Mondo Coolcast, eh? That is awesome. Take a whole bunch, because I want to see more episodes of Mondo Coolcast. I always get a little bit of a buzz when those come out. I really appreciate those. Well, all right. It's after 10 at night. I'm exhausted. We're an hour and 18 minutes in. That's all the energy I have. Thanks you guys so much. And I hope you have a good evening and a good week. I'll see you next time.